What's up? My name is Alex Terranova. I am the host of the Dream Mason podcast. Welcome. We started this in 2017 because we wanted to highlight the journey of Dream Masons. There's a Dream Mason in all of us. A Dream Mason is someone who is awake to their dreams and driven by the passion, the purpose, and the desire to turn that dream into reality. We interview athletes, gold medalists, Super Bowl champions, artists, creatives, 8-9-figure entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, and everyone in between. And sometimes we even walk them through challenges that they're currently facing. So depending on whether you're catching this as a regular interview or a playing with problems segment, there is something for you, whether you're at the peak of your journey, at the low point of your journey. I look forward to having you join me on this journey. And I hope that this show helps you unleash your inner Dream Mason. All right, man. So I saw you were at the Grammys. And I would like to be at the Grammys. I know a lot of people would like to be at the Grammys. What was it like to be at the Grammys this year?
Oh man, you know what? I've been going to the Grammy week leading up to the show for the better part of 7-8 years now. Never gone to the show. This is actually my first time going to the show. It was incredible, we're walking through the hallways of the arena, and we ran into David Grohl and Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox, and like just these people that are stars. And it was just really fun to experience that. The show was incredible. The performances were amazing. It was just a really good experience, and got to walk the red carpet, which was cool. And yeah, it was a good time.
You spend a lot of time with like athletes, and you've gone to the Grammys a lot of times now. So are there people that kind of get you giddy like a little kid still, that if you run into and meet, you're just like, oh my God?
After being an agent, I guess I'm on year 13, you kind of don't get starstruck. There's very few times where, you kind of get a little giddy, but I will tell you a story about one time I got a bit giddy, and this is years ago, but not giddy, like starstruck. So this is when I was living in Chicago, right? And working out at this gym and whatnot. And I'm kind of sitting in between sets, and I see these guys with earpieces in their ears. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like in plain clothes and whatnot. And I'm just like, all right, whatever, continue my set. And I look over and it's Barack Obama. And this was back when he was still trying to win the Democratic, nominee for president. And everybody's going up to him, everybody's seeing him. I'm like, all right, I got to say something to him. I'm like talking about, thinking in my head, I was like, oh, we're both lawyers. Like, it's trying to figure out something to say to him.
Yeah, what you have in common with Barack.
So like the time comes where like we're walking towards each other. I was like, all right, here's my time. He's shaking everybody's hand because, he's trying to be president. I go up, I shake his hand, and he goes, hello, sir. And I said, good luck. And that was it. I had all this in my head of what I wanted to talk to him about and have a conversation. I just only muttered out good luck. So yeah, that was embarrassing. He just said, thank you, sir. And we walked away. I was like, God, I missed my opportunity. But yeah, that was embarrassing. But yeah.
That's funny, man. I had this one experience. I was when I was like in my early 20s. I'm still a huge Curb Your Enthusiasm fan. Like, love Larry David, love Curb Your Enthusiasm. And so I'm probably like 25 years old. I'm like bartending, and Larry David's sitting at a table in the restaurant, and all the people that work with me know I love Larry David. And they like, you got to go talk to him. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I grew up in LA. Like, I see famous people. I'm not starstruck. Like, it's, I don't want to bother anyone. They're like, dude, this is like right. This is like, it's like Larry David and Michael Jordan, for me. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go over. I walk over to the table and I'm like, hey, Larry David, I just wanted to like show my appreciation for your work. I'm a huge fan. I think what you're doing is brilliant. I hope one day I can write something as well as you do. And he casually looks up at me and he goes, I think you should have higher aspirations.
A very Larry David comment right there.
Totally awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It was and it was just like, thank you, and walked away. That's a great story. I love that. I love the piece that I love is that you were trying to like, what do I have in common with Barack Obama? Right?
I was like, all right, we're both lawyers. I'm like, I love Chicago. He's from here. Like I'm just trying to make up whatever, and I'm not a very political person. So I'm just like, shoot your shot and create a moment for you in your life. And I failed miserably.
That's awesome. Thanks for telling that story. So let me tell people that are watching, some people might recognize you. I don't know. Some people might know who you are. Let me tell people who you are. But I first want to tell them that you and I first did this. We first recorded an episode of this podcast on April 24th, 2020, right in
Wow.
the
Right
in
when
the kind
COVID
of,
started.
yeah, it was in that first,
Yep.
the end of March was like when everything kind of kicked lockdown. I was actually I had driven up to stay with my parents at the time to help them out. They were kind of freaked out. I was actually at that time, I was getting back. I was like in the process of getting back together with an ex that relationship blew up. You were like getting married, newly married.
Right.
Our lives were vastly different than they are now, basically 3 years later, which is pretty nuts.
Different. A lot has transpired from the last time we spoke.
Yeah. And so you at the time were the managing director of baseball at Rock Nation, which just, for people that don't know, that's Jay-Z's sports. That's Jay-Z's company, and that's the sports division. And then now you're the head of baseball for Milk and Honey Sports, which started as a music agency and then now has branched into sports. And you and I had been chatting, and I was like, man, I would love to get you on here. I've been focused a lot on talking to men, talking about masculinity, talking about mental health for men, like relationships and whatnot. So I really wanted to bring you on here, and I'm really grateful that you said yes. And to everyone, that you're Kyle Thousand. You first, I just want to tell people you're successful at what you do. You're humble, you're fun, you're wise, you tell great stories, you're open and you're honest. Which is why I wanted to bring you back on here, right? You could be doing whatever you want, hanging out with whatever you want, or hanging out with whoever you want. And you're willing to tell stories about, how you got to where you are and the challenges you faced. And I think that's important.
Well, that's probably the best introduction I've ever had of myself. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, a lot has transpired. Like, gosh, April, what'd you say, 24th?
April 24th, 2020.
Wow. Yeah, I was engaged at the time. I also, at the time when I was at spring training, when the sports shut down, right? I was in Florida, which is probably the mecca of COVID. And I didn't know if like the airports were going to shut down or what was going to happen. And I like packed my bags, got on the first flight up to New York, packed more bags, flew to LA with my, fiance at the time. And from then on, I guess between April 24th of 2020 and now, I've switched jobs. I've been married and divorced, and live in Franklin, Tennessee now, which is a change from 12 years in New York and a couple in LA, and but life's great, man. But the process from there, the last time we spoke to now, it wasn't always easy, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. Yeah. It, going through, the high of a marriage to, not too long of a marriage to get divorced and have it in the public eye, was difficult. And, there were, some struggles along the way. And then my departure from Rock Nation, and it coincided with that in my relationship. It was like a transition amongst any other. Like for me, it was the biggest transition of my life, needless to say. But going through that, trusting the process, even going to therapy, like I think everybody needs to do that. I'm a big proponent of therapy and just, speaking your truth. And if you need to speak to someone in a therapeutic way, and I like I said, I'm a huge proponent of it, and it helped me get through that process, along with just, my family and some great friends that I have. Now, like, I think there's still a huge stigma around mental health, and as it relates to people in sports or athletes. we're taught as boys a way of communicating that hinders our evolution or our progress, right? Like we're taught that like we need to be men, we need to be the providers and whatnot. And we're taught that vulnerability equals weakness, right? Like if you're vulnerable, like you're not a man, right? But I think that, if you pinpoint what's bothering you, right? Or where the anxiety comes from or whatever else, it's almost like a superpower in a way. Like it's a way of just bettering yourself and just living a better life.
Yeah, thanks for saying all that. I think I've also gone to therapy at two different times, and
Mhm.
one of them was really because of a relationship I was in, right? Our communication sucked. We were like fighting and we like wanted to be together, but it wasn't working. And then when the relationship ended, it's the relationship that when we first interviewed, I like stayed in because I was like, man, I'm the common denominator of all my relationships, right? So
Right.
if I want a different relationship, I got to figure out what's going on with me. And the way I like to
Exactly.
think about it is people think that they think that like if we do stuff like this, we're broken, right? We need to be fixed or that we need help, like there's something wrong with us. And the way I really think about it, and the kind of what I was hearing a little bit in yours is to me, it's about optimization. It's like about how do I become my best self? And to your point, I think like as little boys, we're taught be strong, be tough, and like push everything else down. We're like,
Right.
we're conditioned to remove like all our ability to feel. And
Yeah.
then we grow up and we keep doing that, but then shit happens that actually like creates a stir in us. And I think also when we keep pushing stuff down, we lose our ability, like that fire inside of us goes away, like that fire in your belly, because it doesn't, you don't know how to control it because you push it down so long, so that you have like a mediocre marriage and a mediocre job and a mediocre life, and you never get that happy and you never get that sad. That's was my experience.
Right.
And then until I learned to like wrestle with that fire, then
Mhm.
it's like it could come out in all sorts of ways, but under control, right? Like not insane rage. When
Right.
you were going through that process of divorce and transition in your job, what do you think you like learned most about yourself? Not like intellectually, but like the feeling part of yourself, like that part that you had to like kind of investigate for the first time.
Um, you know, I I guess I would say like I hate to fail, right? Like I've was an athlete myself, I've been able to be lucky enough to have the jobs I've had along the way. And when I was going through the divorce, like I felt like I was failing, right? And my parents divorced when I was 7 years old. And so for me, divorce was almost like a scarlet letter in a way. Like I wasn't going to get married till I knew it was the one, and there was never going to be a divorce. And things happen, and unfortunately, that wasn't the case for what I had hoped for. But the the biggest thing I learned, I guess, was just more like it's okay. Like life happens, and you go through the trials and tribulations or the ebbs and flows of life, and you just got to learn to like accept it, right? And just try and not think that the world is out to get you. It's more like that's just the world that we're living in, and just accept it and try and keep an even keel throughout those ebbs and flows that tug at your emotions. And it's, yeah, like for me, that was probably my biggest, yeah,
Did
definitely
you
biggest lesson.
did you ever have opportunities like either in therapy or without, because to practice, being with your heartbreak or your sadness, practice being with your anger or your rage, practice being with your grief? I think those are the things that, especially I hear from men, it's like they're not allowed to be sad, they don't know how to grieve, and their anger is dangerous, so they don't do that either. And then it's like they're actually not being a human being.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like everybody's entitled to whatever they're feeling, right? And
Yeah.
it's the way you process those feelings. and just let them go. It's like looking at your feelings from the 10,000 foot level, as I like to say it, right? Like feelings will come and go. It's how you react to them that makes all the difference in the world in your life. And to be able to take a pause before you have a conversation with someone that you're angry with, or you're feeling heartbroken and you don't know how to feel, and instead of just reacting, just like process the feelings and take some time to sit with them before reacting, or like acting upon those feelings, I should say.
Did you get to do that? Did you feel like you got to do that in the process?
I wish I could take my own advice, man.
Thanks
No,
for
I did. I eventually learned that, right? But it was a tough process to learn, and now, yeah, like, there's, people say, have you ever read the book, The Power of Regret?
No.
It's by Daniel Pink, and it was one of the best books ever read, because people talk about, no regrets, right? Like, live life, everything else. No, you should have regrets, right? And because the regrets are where you get the biggest learning lessons of your life, and then you're able to apply that to the next part of your life. Like, it's a powerful book, and I'd recommend it to anyone. But yeah, like, you should have regrets in life, because again, those are the biggest learning, tools, or learning moments in your life, to be able to develop the tools to apply to a better life moving forward.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, it's true. It's like, thanks for being honest. It is really hard. I just led a retreat of men, well, in October, so a couple months ago, and we had men, that grew up with like violent dads and a lot of like really intense masculinity, right?
Yeah.
And some of these men were like, anger is bad. That fire, that rage is so bad. And they were like very gentle, very soft men. And nothing wrong with that. But because of that, they weren't getting the results in life they wanted, right? They didn't have that intensity. And then we had the opposite side, right? Men who grew up with dads who, it wasn't scary, but they taught them that intensity, but to the point where that was all they knew. They didn't know how to have like a soft side. So they were missing like their relationship with their kids or their wife. And what was really cool was to get the guys to see that you like want all of it, right?
Yeah.
That you want, when you're negotiating a deal for a player, man, I assume you want to go for the jugular. You want to get the best deal you can, right? And that requires you bring a level of intensity. You can't be soft and be pushed around. And I don't think you have any kids yet, but like, if you had a daughter at home and you went home to her, my belief is that you want to be gentle and like nurturing, right? and you don't want to bring that like fire and intensity that you had in the negotiation back to your daughter, and you don't want to bring that softness to the negotiation. But we don't learn as men that we can have all of it. We get stuck in like one or the other.
There's the middle ground, right? Yeah. Like, you just gotta, moments in life where you need a little more intensity, and moments in life where you need to be a little more soft. Like, even if I'm negotiating a deal or something in my job, you don't want to have so much intensity that you come across like they don't want to do business with you, right? There's a lot of players that play professional baseball, and if you come across as someone that you can't handle a negotiation on, or work towards a common ground to make the best deal for both parties, yeah, you want to go for the jugular at times, and you want to get the best deal for your client. Like, that's the ultimate goal, right? But there's a way of doing it where sometimes you get a little more intense, and sometimes you got to play nice in the sandbox, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, let's talk about like some of the guys, the athletes that you work with and represent, or even the guys that you just know that you're like friendly with. How are you seeing that, mental health has been, and men's mental health specifically, has become a big topic for men since, said we were talking earlier about Michael Phelps, but I think like Luke Walton brought a bunch of stuff up, like I think a couple of years ago, and different athletes. I think John Wall wrote a whole piece. I think it was John Wall, like recently.
Yeah.
And But these are right. These are the minority. There's a few drops in a bucket versus like all these guys. What are you seeing kind of from your inside purview around this?
Well, I think again, like mental health is a huge topic in sports. It should be, and it's still not being talked about enough. Michael Phelps, that he came out and was really the first athlete, in my opinion, that at a level that he was at. He's the greatest Olympian of all time. I think it was 2015 when he did that article to speak out about his depression and anxiety and how alcohol use was a big factor. And I mean, the guy got 2 DUIs, right? And he figured out, oh, I've got a problem here. Kevin Love is another guy.
That's right.
Basketball player Kevin Love. He had a panic attack, his first panic attack on the basketball court. I think that was in 2018 during an NBA game. He had a panic attack, and I think there's articles out there about it, but like he ended up like back in the training room, like laying on the ground trying to catch his breath, like he couldn't breathe, and now he's a huge advocate for it. I think he's got a mental health program right now for high schoolers. And there's a lot of others, Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, right? The gymnast who didn't partake in the Olympics because of her mental health issues. Like there needs to be more of it, particularly coming out of the pandemic, right? Like the world shut down, it reopens, there were jobs lost, there were lives lost. I still don't think there's enough conversation being had about mental health, regardless of sports, but in the topic of sports, or in sports in general, a lot more athletes than you think, struggle with mental health issues. And, as an agent, it's, I had one of my clients, he was a first round draft pick, like 12th overall. His first year of playing pro ball, he got a 90+ mile an hour ball that shattered his jaw. Like his jaw was a honeycomb, right? And he came out the next year and hit like 31 homers and 111 RBIs and like shot his way up to almost, he didn't make the big leagues that year, but the next year it was going to happen, right? And then all of a sudden his performance deteriorated. And I'm like, as an agent, I'm trying to figure out, is there something wrong health-wise? I wasn't even thinking mental health.
Yeah.
And it took, almost a year for me to finally be like, do you need to see someone from a mental standpoint? Because my mind didn't go there. That was back right around the time Michael Phelps, came out with it in 2015. And from there, like I've always, thought from an athlete standpoint that like every athlete should be seeing a therapist. But again, we go back to that mental health stigma and that you're weak if you do that. I see it more and more that guys are speaking out more about it, but it still needs to be talked about even more.
Yeah. Thanks for just like putting it on loudspeaker. In the last 2 or 3 years, I've had coaching sessions with probably about 3 to 5 professional athletes, baseball, like a couple of baseball players. Some of the guys were in the minors. Some had been in the pros for a while. Some had finished their career. And the level of stress they have on themselves, the level of pressure they put on themselves, the inability to like, I want to say like have any sort of grace or humanity. And it's not to take away their intensity, right? It's to like, support their intensity, right? It's kind of like you can't just run and run and run without stretching or drinking some water, right? Like if you don't drink water and stretch, something bad's going to happen. And I think that like athletes are a great example of that masculinity of like action, 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 results, 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 without like, hey, how are we cleansing the intensity process? Yeah, man, I'm like right there with you. I don't know if it's right. I think everybody's different, right? Some guys, if it's like therapy to me, if it's depression or severe anxiety, and some guys, it's not that level. They just need to learn how to process, like we were saying before, you were saying like how to process all the stuff that's coming up and like cleanse it, deal with it, and manage it in a way that's healthier. Because I think as men, as or even humans in our society, none of us have really been taught any of this, right? We just get thrown into the intensity of life, and it's like swim. And at these high level caliber spaces,
Yeah.
swimming is like life or death. It probably feels like.
Yeah, I mean, these athletes are like you train your body. You grow up training your body, performing at the highest level or getting to the point of performing to the highest level. But the mental side is what is still lacking. You need to train your mind just as you train your body. And, if you like, I always tell my guys, like, particularly my minor leaguers, right? Like, you can have all the talent in the world, but that last piece is the mental side, right? Control or worry about what you can control, right? The rest will fall into place. And if they can just get to that point where, guys are like, I'm doing this in AAA, like, why am I not getting that call up? Why am I, that's not, my decision. It's not your decision. It's the team's decision. And yeah, we can try and influence it, but at the end of the day, it's their decision. And so just worry about what you can control and just continue performing like you're doing, right? And the rest will play out.
Yeah, it is so neglected, that mental piece. Right? We're so willing to exercise. I even think about guys like LeBron. I think what does LeBron spend, like $1 million a year, right, on his body?
His body,
or it's like
yeah.
I don't remember, right? It's like $1 million a year or something on his body. I think it's like $1.5 million now.
Yeah, and I think he's got like a mental health coach and a therapist.
Yeah, and
I'm pretty sure.
And it makes, right, I think, like, if you just think about the simplicity, how it should feel basic, in the sense of our brain's a muscle. Why do we exercise every other muscle in our body in various ways? Why do we get them massaged, ice baths, saunas, right? All this stuff. And even when you think about that, your brain is your brain and your nervous system, right? Like, your nervous system goes to your whole body. So what's happening in your brain is directly linked to every area of your body. Right. I don't know. I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but I'm a little curious about your opinion. I recently had an experience. I went and did an ayahuasca plant medicine journey for the first time. And when I went, I thought I was going to have shoulder surgery going in. I don't know what I had done, but I had both of my rotator cuffs. Like, I couldn't lift anything with my arms. I was in pain, like, when I slept. And I was like, man, when we come back, I was trying to give it some time and rest. I was like, oh, when we come back from this thing, I'll go get it handled. And I noticed in the medicine, I had no shoulder pain, none at all. It went from, like, I remember lying there, and I'm in this, like, this state, and I have this moment of consciousness where I'm like, my shoulders don't hurt. By the end of the weekend, my shoulders were fine.
Come on, really?
Dude, totally fine. I'm, like, back in the gym. I'm doing everything. I'm boxing. I'm lifting heavy weight, right? My shoulders are totally fine. Now, I'm not saying I don't want people to say, hey, go do ayahuasca. It'll heal your pain.
I mean, I just had shoulder surgery 4 months ago, and I'm like in the worst shape of my life right now, because I still can't do what I normally have done my whole life. Maybe I need to do that. Maybe you and Aaron Rodgers are on something about this ayahuasca stuff.
Well, this is what I was going to ask. I was going to ask you about Aaron Rodgers, but what I want to say is, like, I don't think that if you get hit by a car and your body's hurt, you might need to go do something, right? But I didn't know what I did. I had just, like, had, like, this pain kind of came. It wasn't like I did one thing. And what I really got from it is, like, man, there was something happening up here that was manifesting in my physical body. And maybe it was manifesting in a way I was lifting. Maybe it was just manifesting, but that I did some work, and that all of a sudden it had cleansed that, and now I'm fine. And
like, you think that was from, like, the mental standpoint of going through? So I know some people that have done ayahuasca. I've never done it. I'm a proponent of, like, do what you think is going to better yourself or your life, right? If people want to do ayahuasca, you should go for it. Aaron Rodgers, I think he's going on, like, a silent retreat or something, trying to figure out.
He is,
what is like a silent retreat. Is that what it was? Where you just
he's doing it's a darkness. It's like a certain amount of days in pitch black darkness with no interaction with people. So I don't know if there's, like, if he's also doing medicine. but it creates basically by being in the dark by yourself for that long without any other human interaction, it stimulates the same response as like essentially ayahuasca would, because it's like being in solitary, right? Like you go a little, it opens up
Yeah,
levels of consciousness that aren't available to us normally.
man. Yeah, like I can't say that I'm an expert on ayahuasca or these silent retreats or whatnot, but like I'm a proponent of like if you feel that that's going to better your life, you should try it. You know, you should try everything that you at least have some sort of inkling, like, hey, this is wrong with my life, and oh, that sounds good. Like I have friends that have done ayahuasca, and they keep speaking that it's like the best thing ever. It has been to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do this, but
Pretty great. It's
yeah,
pretty great.
each their own. And wait, you're going to do that? You're going on one?
No. So I went for 3 days. I went on,
Okay.
yeah, last year I went on a 3-day, a 3-night, 3-day, 3-night
Oh,
ayahuasca
right. The
journey.
whole show. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. But yeah, no, and I would, it
It
was
was life.
it was life changing, and it was probably the 3 of the best days of my entire life. And it wasn't, look, this was not like a party, right? You're not, I wasn't like loving every moment of it. So there were some really dark moments, but at the end of the day, even at the end of the dark moments, I felt like I knew who I was more than I ever have. I felt like I knew my purpose. I felt clean and clear. I felt more connected to my fiance, who went with me, and she had she decided kind of like towards the end, like I'll go and she got insane amounts of healing on her life. I had some other people I knew there that it brought us closer. What I felt like ultimately it did was, if I felt like it took down the veils that we create as humans to protect ourselves. So it took down the walls that we put up to make ourselves feel safe. So you were able to connect more deeply with,
Yeah.
yeah, you're able to connect more deeply, love more deeply, see each other more deeply, see yourself more deeply. And having those walls taken down is freeing. Like everybody walks away feeling, I believe, a little, not everybody, I shouldn't say, but like the people I had interacted with seemed like they all walked away feeling more free to go now back into their regular life and bring what they learned. And then you got to practice what you learned back in your regular life, right? It's not.
I mean, you need to be a spokesman for ayahuasca, man. I'm about ready to sign up myself. But like, I want to ask you a question. Now I'm going to interview you for a second with this, because now you got me intrigued. Like, what was that process of going through that and then entering back into, we'll call it the real world, that like helped you from a mental standpoint, and how have you carried it on since you've done that?
Yeah. It's been challenging at times, and sometimes really fluid and easy. So I'll share like what I would say is some of the biggest learnings I got were we're disconnected from nature. That we, at our most core elements, are animal, are species of this planet like anything else, and that we've disconnected ourselves from nature. And for me, that meant there was a clear, like, you need to be in nature more. Put your feet in the grass, put your feet in the sand on the beach, like go stand and lean against a tree, sit under a tree, just connect more with what I feel like is like where we came from. And what that's done for me is, and there's plenty of science that backs this up, is it's grounding. So when I feel anxious, when I feel worried about money, when I'm freaking out about getting married, and I go put my feet in the sand and just like listen, close my eyes, listen to the ocean, and just stand there, it's almost, there's this sense of feeling like the earth is holding me.
Yeah.
Which, right? And if you think the earth is, everything comes from the earth, right? So there is this like, this sounds very like woo woo, but right, there's this like very sense of the earth is mother, and it's holding us. And that's one. Another piece is how disconnected we are from each other, how we're like always running around judging each other, telling each other how we should be. We're all righteous about our beliefs. And inside of the medicine, in the experience, I noticed that everyone in that room, I was like, that's just another soul, right? There's just a soul. I actually, what it had me do, which was really cool, was it saw how to see our bodies as avatars. And the way I kind of explain this to people is,
like a vessel.
It's a vessel, right? And the way I explain this to you is like, Kyle, if you got in a horrible accident and we took both of your arms and you had to lose them because of a horrible accident, would you not still be Kyle 1000?
Yeah, of course.
Would you be any less Kyle 1000? And actually, when you're like, who am I? You just wouldn't have arms, right? It'd still be you. If we went in and took like you had an infection in like, let's say your liver and somebody else put their liver inside, you had a liver transplant. Would you not still be Kyle? Would you still not be you?
No, of course. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
So that for me, that reflection was like, oh my God, I'm not this body. I describe it as like I'm like, oh man, I chose this avatar. This is like the suit that my soul picked out to wear. Right. And then it had me look at all the people around the room as they're not their race, their gender, their religion. That's like the avatar that they're scooting around in. And then I was able to like see them and connect with them and have more respect for their journey, their challenges, their beliefs, because I'm like, man, there's just like a little energy vessel in there, right? Whatever that consciousness is. And so it opened up me empathetically, right? Like it really opened my heart to be with other people that I would have normally been like judging or having an opinion around. And that's been huge. It also had me really connect with, I want to say, our westernized cultures, we've gotten rid of like everything ritualized, right? Yeah. We don't really have a ritual from boy to man or like, it's kind of like, unless you're like having a quinceañera or a bar mitzvah, which for most people, it's just like a party, right? We're not really having any sort of ritual moments that get people usher into different places in their life, like indigenous communities would. And it kind of showed me that, man, their indigenous cultures were on to a lot of insanely brilliant and wise things. And we, as a capitalistic kind of westernized culture, kind of just like push that over because that gets in the way of making money. And it had me start like researching and reading books on indigenous cultures and their beliefs and how they relate to the body and the mind and how they relate to each other and the planet. And it's not to say that I still don't make money, right? Because I still live here with you and do this, but how can we incorporate both? Like one doesn't have to be bad and one doesn't have to be good, but could we have like both sides of the coin instead of just like the one side or the other?
Yeah. How do we even get on this topic by this point?
I was going to ask you, I wanted to know.
Go widespread.
Dude, I love it. Well, I didn't know we'd go here either. Well, I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about mental health, if you were Aaron Rodgers's agent or advisor, like what would you, I mean, are you like, go man, go do this? Would you be like, this is messing with your career? Like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, that guy's, he's what, how many MVPs has he won?
At least, I think 3.
And, it's been for the last couple of years where he's kind of really spoken out and kind of made this change in his persona or whatnot. I mean, before that, like, I don't remember him to be a very outspoken person, but now he's on Pat McAfee's show, right? Like every week or something, talking about this or that. And, at the end of the day, you can't control your client. Like you try to, you do your best to steer them in the right direction. But if I was Aaron Rodgers' agent, go do what you're going to do, man.
Yeah.
You want to play again? Let me know. And I'm going to go out and get you a job or get you traded or, whatever. But like it's, the most rewarding thing in my career as being an agent, right, is like you try and guide these young men's lives into an opportunity that very few have, right? And they have a one-time opportunity to maximize generational wealth if they do it the right way. And some guys do it, some don't, some do everything they can and they don't make it. And it's not to anyone's fault. Like, as I think I mentioned to you before we hopped on here, like 50% of first round draft picks in Major League Baseball don't make the big leagues.
Yeah.
50%, and that to me is like, And it's, some people go down the wrong path or, just don't put in the time or the effort and whatnot. But when you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers that has done what he's done, that he's on his own hamster wheel. Like it's just,
Yeah.
you let them do what they need to do or want to do, and you wait for the phone call. I mean, yeah.
Well, it speaks to what you said before, right? You're like, hey, I think people should speak their truth, which is what he's doing. That's his truth. And people need to kind of follow their own journey. And you also talked about like, you got to control what you can control, and you can't control someone else. So you focus on like, hey, if you call me, I'm going to go get you the job. I'm going to do my job and I'm play my role, but I'm not going to control
I
you.
mean, listen, like, I'm not going out and telling my clients like, go do this or that, or I'm not. I am trying to control them. Maybe I need to take my own advice of just worrying about the things that I can control. But it's obviously my job to steer these guys in the right direction. But everybody has one life that we know of, right? And so who am I to judge an Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers that wants to go do this? Is done ayahuasca, I guess, multiple times, but is going to do this silent retreat and teach their own.
What do you think is let's change, let's kind of pivot a little bit. What do you think is, you had this, what I would think most people would relate to as like a dream job or a great job at Rock Nation as the managing director of baseball. And then now you're in a position with Milk and Honey as the head of baseball. What do you kind of see as your next big, like, what's the next big challenge for you?
I mean, I'm currently in it right now,
Yeah.
right? Like first of all, that transition from Rock Nation to Milk and Honey, as I spoke to, I think at the beginning, was very challenging. And during that time, I was going down a path of raising funds to start my own agency, right? And I was about 9 months into it before finally had to pull the plug, right? It wasn't the right partners. And was introduced to the guys at Milk and Honey, Lucas Keller, Dave Frank, and Jake Presser and those guys, and found out a bit more about them. Like Milk and Honey is started in music and really started with representing songwriters and producers. And as we know, like owning the rights to the music is where, really where the money is in music. And Lucas came from the collective before that and decided to break away and then they got into artist management, and then about 2 years ago they got into football, and they brought in Jake Presser and Raleigh Williams in, and it got time. Like I guess it was almost 2 years ago, and when I got introduced to them, it was just like instantly for me that it was the right partners. And that just goes to any job, right? Like you don't have to like all your coworkers or whatever, but finding the right fit and the right path is what it's all about. And it took me 18 months to really figure that out and find the right people. Couldn't be more excited though. And yeah, like it's wasn't an easy journey, but it was a journey worth taking to see, all this come together and be with this crew that is doing great things in all aspects.
Dude, I know what you have in common with Obama.
But that,
it's not bad. You totally answer questions sometimes like political answers, right? Like I'm like, hey, what's the big challenge? And you told me this great story, right, about Rock Nation and joining Milk and Honey, but you didn't actually tell me what the challenge was, which you like. So I'm going to bring you back to it. Like when you now you're right now,
that's the lawyer in me right there.
Totally, but it's like, yeah, no, I'm just messing with you. But
Yeah.
I love that you're sharing like the how it's evolved. But for you, when you think about, man, what is my challenge now with whether it doesn't have to be with Milk and Honey, but what's the kind of mountain you're trying to climb?
No, it's just this is the first time where this is my baby, right? Like I'm an equity owner in an agency for the first time in my career. And so for that brings on a whole new set of challenges, right? Like we also brought in a little outside money. So I'm responsible for the growth of this agency, not only like to me personally and my namesake to it, but also to other people that trusted in me to build a great agency. So that is the challenge for me. And this is the first time I've ever encountered this challenge in my career, as far as being an owner and also having, investors that believed in me, and it was me that they believed in, right? Not like Rock Nation or, Phil prior to that. Like this is my baby.
Yeah, thanks for that's what I was looking for. Like, right, with the challenge, it's like you've never done this before. The responsibility of it, the pressure I hear of like, hey, there's if I don't succeed, I don't just let me down, I let other people down.
Right.
What I want to know now is, I think a lot of us. I was asked recently, like, how are you feeling about getting married? And I'm like, man, I'm a little freaked out. I've never been married. I've never been a dad. I like all these things I've never done, right?
Yeah.
And anyone that wants to grow their life, whether it be romantically, professionally, well, in their wealth, they're going to have to do things they've never done. And you're in that space right now. What advice do you have? Because so many of us are like, so many people are staying exactly where they are because they're like, I don't know how to do the next thing. Whereas like, you don't necessarily know how. You step into it and you figure it out. What advice do you have for the people that really want to step into something scary or challenging, but that I've never done it before is like holding them back?
I mean, you got to get out of your comfort zone. Like that, if you get too comfortable, things are just not going to happen, right? Like get uncomfortable, but more important, like my great grandfather had this saying that was passed down along to me. It's the harder I work, the luckier I got, right? You can't get complacent. You can't go through 10 episodes of Netflix every night and expect to have changes in your life that you want. Like you've got to do the work. And just being present, to be honest, like to be in the room. Like I love to surround myself and have conversations with people that are quite frankly smarter than me, right? But like learning every day, picking up a book, doing what you have to do to just like, even if it's not related to your ultimate business, but we go back to training our mind, right? It's not just therapy. It's when's the last time we were in a classroom, right? Like, what else are you doing to continue to learn? Even if it's outside your industry, what are you doing to better yourself at the end of the day? And I try and carve out like an hour of my day to read something or I make the joke about 8 episodes of whatever on Netflix, but there's some great documentaries out there that you can. I mean, you talked about, the Shaq documentary, right? And we were talking prior to this just about the mental struggles that he went through, but not to go back to the mental side or mental health side, but watch a documentary that's informative and worthwhile. If you're not into reading books or whatever. Like I'm always trying to do something to better my mind. Besides watching MLB Network all day in my office and trying to figure out who's going where and why and whatever else.
I love that you're on the inside and you're like watching it on TV. It's
and Twitter, like these reporters. And listen, I have great relationships with a lot of the baseball reporters out there, and this goes beyond just baseball. These reporters, there's such a big thing to them, and I'm still a little confused why. Like they've got to break the news, right? Like. And I guess obviously that betters their job because it, drives more clicks to, their company's website or whatever else to read the full article. But yeah, like I'm just like anyone else watching MLB Network or Twitter sometimes getting the news in real time.
You said something I wanted to, the thing you got me that I thought of when you were talking about the things we do, it was like, the thing I heard, which I wanted for myself, but I want people to really hear is like, what's that thing that gets you excited? For me, watching a documentary about like the Lakers during the Showtime era, or there's actually a bunch on the Lakers right now. There's a documentary about Magic and Kareem on HBO. There's one about Shaq. There's a documentary on Hulu about like the journey, the Lakers' whole dynasty. And what I noticed, they're very much done like the Michael Jordan documentary, or the Tom Brady one that was on Hulu, right? Like all these
I haven't seen that yet. I need to see that.
all of these things they're showing you, at least for me, this is what it does. They're showing you what greatness looks like, and not just the best parts, right? There's low points in these stories. And I noticed that when I watch these things, like my blood kind of starts heating up and boiling. And it has me being like, how do I get myself to that level? Right. Not like they did it, but in my own ways, right? I find that, I'm like running upstairs to tell somebody about what I watched, and I want to talk about the stories. And what I notice is when I catch that kind of energy, that energy gets you somewhere, right? That energy leads to good things. And when I'm watching like just a show on Netflix, I don't get that energy. That has me like lying on the couch under a blanket, very calm, whatever. That's okay too. But the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the shows you watch, you just had me like tap into that. Like, man, find that energy, find that thing that gets you like where you want to run and tell your friends what you just learned, and then follow that. And that's going to get you somewhere good.
Yeah, like that's going back to what I talked about getting too comfortable, right? Like you've got to find that energy, and that, you know what, like you're going to have bad days, and there's going to be days where you have no energy. But I'm a big routine guy at the end of the day. If I'm off my routine, like I don't feel right, and I know it, right? Like I go to bed at a certain hour, I wake up at a certain hour, I have my routine through the day. I try and, despite my limitations with my shoulder surgery, try and get, a workout in, and books I read. Another big book that will jack you up. Have you ever read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins?
No, man. David Goggins is like that guy blows.
I know.
It's like too much suffering to success.
Yeah, but I don't know. I read that book and it jacked me up. Another, who was Michael Jordan's trainer?
Tim Grover. Tim. I love him, man. His mindset stuff is unbelievable.
That book he talked about Michael's journey and everything, and what he did on a consistent basis to be who, the athlete and the person he was.
Yeah.
That was probably even more so than the Can't Hurt Me book. But like, yeah. It's just energy comes from all different, places, right? But you got to find them, and it's not going to be the same each time, but you got to find that motivation and that desire. And, whether it's, from my perspective, like failing others with this new venture, right? Or if it's failing your family or not living up to, your standards or your parents' standards or whatever else, like find where that comes from and just keep working and working. But find time for fun in life too,
Yeah,
that's where all the source of energy can come from.
I think routines, and I'm very like, hey, your routine can be whatever you want. It's like everybody's got to find their own, right? It could be like, I was listening to what's the blanking on his name? What's the big record producer who'd like developed the Beastie Boys and Jay-Z originally? Big guy, long beard, Rick Rubin.
Oh, Rick Rubin, yeah.
I was listening to Rick Rubin the other day, and they were asking him, what's your routine? He's like, man, I wake up and the first thing I do is I get in the sun as fast as I can. And that's like, he's like, I get in the sun, I walk and I listen to an audiobook. And he's like, I don't look at my phone, I don't look at anything else. I just walk and I'm in the sun, and then he had some other things too. But you could hear like, and I hear this from you, we hear it from everyone, like you got to find a routine, especially I think as a man. It's like the way that we harness that fire inside of us is to apply it to purpose. And if we don't have a routine, it's like chaotic energy. And so it doesn't matter how you do it, right? If you're a David Goggins guy and your routine is like hardcore, or you're more that like, hey, I just need to take a walk and breathe and be outside and be in nature and, put your feet in the sand. It's something.
Right. Yeah, I've been kind of working. It's funny you said that about Rick Rubin, and he doesn't, he wakes up. I've been trying to do, so I get up about 6 a.m. most mornings, or at least the weekday mornings, right? And I've been trying for the first hour to not look at my phone.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Especially in my job, because like I go to bed, 11-ish, whatever. And, if you got clients on the West Coast, right, and they text you while you're, in bed or sleeping, it's, you feel that urge. And so I've modified the 1 hour thing. It's like, okay, check your text. If it's a client, read it. If it's not, keep it aside, right? Or emails that could be urgent coming in from the company. But it's so difficult. But like, yeah, finding that routine and that pattern, what brings you joy and what brings you peace. It's different. It's a different recipe for every person.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I've been trying. I like broke down, not actual broke down, but I was with my fiance the other day, and I was like, I'm addicted to my phone. Like I'm as addicted to my phone as I am anything else in my life. I don't actually think I've ever been as addicted to anything as I am my phone. And so we started this thing where like I put my phone in the bathroom when I go to bed. I don't even have it next to my bed. It's on airplane mode. And then when I've been trying,
anxiety when you do that though?
No, it's okay that I put it away.
Okay.
The tough part is like I've been saying like, all right, no phone, when I go brush my teeth, don't turn it on. Don't look at it. Cause I'm up around 6 also. And I'm like, no, our jobs are different. Right. But I'm like, nobody needs me at 6 a.m. And so the other day though, yesterday, I didn't pick up my phone until 11 a.m. I left it in the bathroom until 11 a.m. And this is only one time. I've only like done it. And it was yesterday. And I felt so good all day.
Doesn't it feel good? Like, I mean, but with a job like mine and whatnot, like there, and a lot of jobs out there, you live off your phone, you work off your phone, or,
I still have my email, right? I still got to my email, right? On my computer. I wasn't disconnected from the world until 11 a.m. But what I did notice was it's different, like replying to your email or even shooting you a text via my computer. It was different than having this thing that is like an inch from my face that also has, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and 50 other things I can do.
You're in different apps and scrolling and doing all that, and you've wasted 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
And that stuff is not as important as like maybe your clients or the emails.
Right. Yeah. But we've grown so accustomed that if you don't get back to someone in 5 minutes, there's a problem, or like people get upset. It's I think, oh gosh, what's his name? The guy from that 70s show, he's from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah.
He was on a podcast recently talking about how, back in his day when he was like going out or whatever else, you could go out and nobody would know or what you were up to or anything else because nobody really was living off their phone, right? But nowadays, you go anywhere. And what was it when LeBron broke the record and they'd have that big thing, that comparison of when basically everybody was on their phone but Phil Knight, is what my point is, right? Like we've just grown so accustomed to have instant response time, or you've done something wrong. It's tough. It's hard to grow unaccustomed to what is transpired in our childhood into adulthood, which is the age of the phone, really, and the internet. Yeah
Man, we have definitely like tracked a journey today from marriage to divorce to mental health to the Grammys to Aaron Rodgers and ayahuasca. To phones and getting uncomfortable. Man, I love talking to you.
This is fun. I appreciate you having me on again.
It's always fun.
Tell me about this book that's coming out.
Oh yeah. We haven't even talked about it. I can show you a little bit. So this is the book, How Dreams Are Built. This is like a promo copy that I got to like go through from my publisher. But basically, I don't know what page yours is on, but just quickly, I'll just show you. It's like we got like a blurb, some blurbs from whoever the guest was on the original podcast. Your bio, like who you are, your bio, a little bit from me about each person, how they impacted me, what I learned from them, and then kind of on another page, like the highlights of the episode, like
Nice.
the gold of each person.
Yep. That's
So
cool. When's it coming out?
Man, this thing has been so hard. This is like the hardest thing I've ever done. And I wrote another book, but I think this is tough because this is so much harder. It feels like, because I don't want to let the people down. Right. I'm like reading and I'm like, oh man, I got to say more about Kyle. I got to say a better thing about, right. It's not just my book, in my opinion. It's like, I was looking at a page last night in bed. I was going through it to give notes to my editor. And I was like, I don't like that some of these people don't have enough like blurbs, right? Some have more than others. And right. And if it was just my book, I wouldn't be thinking of it. Right. I'm trying to like caretake. I want to make sure everyone feels good about it. So it's taking longer. We thought it was going to be out at the end of last year. Now we're we're obviously into the beginning of 2023. My hope would be like in the next probably 3 or 4 months, we'll have it out. But it's exciting because it's so cool to be able to take 3-4 years of podcasts, whatever it is, and like really shine a light on like I don't want to say the 100 best, because that's not really what it is, but it's the 100 that really stood out to me, that I felt like it made a difference, that I wanted to kind of say thank you and publish a little journey of it,
No, that's awesome. Congrats on that. And I'm going to need a signed copy of that at some point.
Dude, well, we got to have it go both ways. I think I got to get one where I have every single person in there sign, like they send it to the next person, and like it makes its way all the way around.
Absolutely. Well, you say that's the hardest thing now. Marriage in the next month, in 1 month, you're going to Tulum. That might be a little harder, but at the same time, like I'm not one to give advice, but like I'm excited for you in that journey.
Thanks, man. I would agree with you. It will be. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I said I think marriage is the hardest thing anyone will ever do in their life, because every other challenge, like you have or you don't, but you choose that one. You like really choose to embark on all your other challenges with this person, and there's no way to know that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, you're going to be the same people. Right. I shared with her recently the biggest reason. I mean, I love her. We have this amazing relationship, but the number one thing that has me excited is I'm like, we can navigate storms together, right? Like that's what I think is what can make us successful. But
it's got to be you two against the world, man. It's you two against the world, no matter what. You know?
But who knows?
Communication is key.
Yeah.
And also saying yes, dear. Yes, you're right.
I think, it's not the yes, dear. It's the apologizing when we're wrong. And I think taking time to cool off, luckily I think I have more of the fire in the relationship. She's calmer. And so when we do fight, usually she will step away, which is good because it lets me settle, and then we can come back together. And usually I know when I've messed up afterwards.
Well, here's the thing, and this will come full circle to what I said at the beginning, is like everybody's entitled to their own feelings, right? And so when you two know if you're feeling a certain way, the other person shouldn't get defensive. It should be more, why are you feeling that way? How can I help you with that? How can we get through this together? Or what can we do? Or what can I do to not make you feel that way anymore? It's being partners.
Yeah.
This is, playing opposite sides of the ball.
Yeah. It's so tough, right? Because we just get yanked in by our emotions, and we let our emotions. It's not even our emotions. I feel like when we get hooked by somebody, right? When somebody triggers us, hooks us, it's actually that little kid inside of us, right? We behave like a child. And because most of us, when we look back, we're like, why did I act like that? Right? Why was I that fired up or excited or pissed off? And that's that's that child inside of us that got let off. I want to say almost let off the leash for a minute.
No, exactly. And I don't know. I believe in the institution of marriage, and I hope one day I can, get married again. But I'm so excited for you, man. You're
Thanks, man.
how you met too is so unique, and for that to come to where you guys are getting married a month in Tulum, where you went for a wedding together for the first time. That's awesome, man. So
Thanks.
congrats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
It's
do
a
you got
great,
winning the Super Bowl?
you know, I, I think it's I don't know how you bet. There's some guys I feel like I don't want to bet against.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I want to bet against the Chiefs. Mahomes is like,
Even with a bum ankle, I just don't know how you can bet against him.
I almost also think Mahomes is a guy that feels like at the end of his career, he can be up there and like guys that we remember. And,
Yeah.
and winning a Super Bowl on a bum ankle is the story that will tell that, right?
Right.
It's the flu game, right? It's those kind of things. And if he doesn't win, it's okay. That happens, but that's what it feels like. But dude, I mean, it's like a few years ago, I don't know how many years Jalen Hurts has been in the league, right? Like 2 or 3 years, right? It's not a long more.
This is his third season. He was drafted in what, 2021, I think was his first year. So yeah.
Yeah. And I don't pay attention to every single detail I used to be like crackhead about sports, and I've kind of like let myself, I worry about my own life more than other people's now. But I think like, man, this guy wasn't on the radar, which I think is so cool that, this guy has primed. He transferred schools. He gave himself a new opportunity in college. Right. And now he's here and he's on the biggest stage. And I think it's also nice to like not have somebody dominating every year. Right. It's kind of like, I respect Tom Brady, but it's nice to have like other guys get to win some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got more experience on the Chiefs side versus, I mean, the Eagles lineup, like that whole Eagles team is stacked, right? And they all have, not everyone, but like you've got, I think it's always broken down to like the quarterback, right? And this is Mahomes' third Super Bowl. He's 1-1, right? I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, but like I think it is. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, it'll be interesting. But if Hurts can step up, I mean that Eagles, team is tough. But yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs though.
Well, this will probably, since the Super Bowl is this weekend, this is going to air after the Super Bowl. So
All right.
we're going to get to either, for people listening, we're either going to be like totally look like idiots, or we're going to
we might need to cut this out if we're looking like idiots. This is,
no, it's all right. It's like, I feel like sports conversation it's like one of those things that, for a lot of ways, I'm glad that we threw it in it. I'm glad that you actually brought it at the end, because I think we talked about a lot of deep things. We talked a lot about personal things. And I think sports conversation is like water cooler talk for men. It's like the one area that we're really comfortable expressing ourselves and sharing. And which is why we see guys get like so passionate and so heated. It's the one area that it's like, it's safe. We're allowed to do that there. And, and I'm a big believer that it's actually in the theme of this whole episode, that it's not bad. It's not good. It's just like, I want to be a guy who gets to talk about everything with my buddies and everything with men, not just sports, So it's good that it comes in at the end.
This is why you're good at what you do, man. You just brought it all full circle right there. I love that.
Thanks, man. Maybe you can represent me and help me expand this platform. Dude, thank you so much for coming back. Thanks for having fun with this. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your honesty, your openness, your vulnerability, and also the success stories and all the wins that you're able to bring and share. We'll do this again. We're not going to wait 3 years. We won't wait 3 years, but we'll do this again.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone listening, thank you. Thanks for being here, listening to the Dream Mason podcast. That is Kyle 1000. Kyle, we didn't even ask. Do you want people if people want to reach out to you, do you want them to follow you? Is that something that matters to you? You're not like selling a course or anything. So
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you can find me on Instagram if you people have questions or just want to know a little bit more. And yeah, absolutely.
There you go. It's Kyle 1000 on Instagram, right? It's just straight. It's your name,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
So you can follow Kyle on Instagram at Kyle 1000. If you go back to the Dream Mason podcast 42420 episode, actually, it's probably not that date, but you can find it under Kyle 1000. You can actually listen to the first episode. And that episode was totally different than this one. We talked about baseball. We talked about your relationship with your dad. We talked about a lot of different things. So I love that we just expanded on this, and I look forward to having you on again. And to the audience, thank you. If something in here resonated with you, please take it, utilize it, and share this episode with a friend. Help, someone that might need it, especially men out there that might get something from this. Please share it with them, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening. Honestly, I'm just a rebel who found a cause and has a dream, and I'm super grateful for your support. If you got anything from this, please help me out and share this podcast with one person today. You can find me at thedreammason.com or at inspirationalalex on Instagram. You are a Dream Mason because your dreams don't build themselves.